Okay, let's talk macros.
Yeah. So macros are important in terms of the response that you get in your body. So we're looking at hormones and neurotransmitters. So hormones are chemicals in the body that have a different effect on different cells. And certain types of food will elicit different hormones, like carbohydrates will increase the secretion of insulin. And insulin is important in building muscle. It's important in maintaining cellular health. But excess insulin is not a good idea. So it's ultimately about balance, but looking at macros, so we have like protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Protein is going to drive neurotransmitter dopamine. And dopamine is the neurotransmitter of motivation and drive and hitting a goal and celebrating that goal. When you hit a new PR on a squat, dopamine is released. And if you're somebody who is a dopamine dominant person, you need to hit those goals. So if you don't, you feel depressed. Not lifting heavy. I don't feel like myself. I literally am spacey.
Yeah.
So, neurotransmitters don't just get released from what food, but it's also a behavioral thing. But the food is important because we're increasing protein earlier on in the day. So you want a neurotransmitter like dopamine earlier on in the day. You want to feel motivated. You want to feel a drive to get shit done. You want to hit goals, right? Generally, you don't want to feel that in the evening. Those aren't negative things, but you want to feel calmer in the evening. You want to be able to relax. So carbohydrates are a precursor to, they do a lot of things, but on a neurotransmitter level, a precursor to serotonin. And serotonin is a neurotransmitter that helps you feel happy and at peace. And you want that. That's also important, but at the right time. So that's why we use carbohydrates typically later on in the day around dinner time, because you want to be able to wind down correctly so that you can let go of the day and you can improve quality of sleep. So I look at the sort of yang neurotransmitters, which are more energetic neurotransmitters. So that would be dopamine and acetylcholine. Acetylcholine we'll talk about in a sec. And then the yin neurotransmitters, which would be GABA and serotonin. You want GABA, serotonin later on in the day, because that's when you start to wind down and reflect and plan for the next day and de-stress, because we're on for most of the day. Dopamine and acetylcholine you want earlier on in the day. So acetylcholine is has to do with, so neurotransmitter, a lot of it's abundant in the brain, has to do with reaction time and learning and retaining information and recalling information. So it's a very speedy neurotransmitter. Sprinters, 100-meter sprinters, are extremely high in acetylcholine. They are very, 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 very fast. And acetylcholine, choline is a fat. And so eating healthier fats, so we're talking about olive oils and butter and coconut oil, fats that are not highly processed, so they're easier for the body to break down, start to give the building blocks, just like protein does dopamine, to build acetylcholine. And acetylcholine helps, it helps to stabilize energy so that you're getting faster muscle contractions. You can keep your focus on, you're learning new things. So there's a brain connection, but there's also a muscle connection too, in terms of how the muscle synapses fire. So essentially, protein and healthy fats earlier on in the day. Don't think about just eating protein at night is going to drive dopamine. It's not really that type of thing. Protein will have another, you also need it for maintaining muscle and detoxifying immune system and such. So having that connection mainly towards more energy transmitters during the daytime, and then relaxing in the evening. So serotonin in the evening. GABA is the other neurotransmitter. GABA, like famous GABA meal would be rice and peas with bananas. And that's like a super comfort food. And GABA is the neurotransmitter of relaxation and peace, and more of like the feeling that you get after you've taken a long walk in the forest, where you feel super grounded. You've got that nature fix and stuff. You may have energy, but it's really stable energy. So GABA is important. I wouldn't necessarily change a diet to bring in GABA, which is why I'm bringing it in at the end. So it gets complicated, but I wanted to touch base on those 4 major neurotransmitters and how basic macros relate to them.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's I think that's, again, knowing why you're eating for energy rather than just thinking that if I eat carbs, I'm going to have energy. It's like, no, if we eat more dopamine rich foods early on, we're going to have like really nice energy levels. We're going to, thrive in these like harder workouts, channeling, acetylcholine for again, the longer, harder stuff, and knowing like the time of day when we want to use these things. That's a big one, I think, for a lot of people, like knowing, channeling in on that serotonin at night rather than saying, I'm going to eat a bunch of carbs.
Yeah,
You have a little bit more conscious control over it, as to why you're using it and like what it's for, kind of thing.
totally. Yeah. Yeah.